everybody, it's Lon.TV, and you all know how much I love low-cost devices that do more than their price might suggest. This new phone from Motorola is one of those devices. This is the Moto G. This just came out today, and Motorola let us take home a review sample from their press event in New York City to do this review. So this is a $179 starting price for one of these. The $179 version has 1 gigabyte of RAM and 8 gigabytes of storage. This particular one we're looking at has 2 gigabytes of RAM and 16 gigabytes of storage for $249. But these are the unlocked prices, so you don't need a carrier to buy it. You can go to Motorola's website, customize it with all the different backs and everything else, and you can get the phone pretty much good to go from there, and you can just slide your SIM card in and be off and running. The version you might buy direct from Motorola is not going to work on Verizon at the moment, but it does work on AT&T and T-Mobile, but there will be carrier versions available soon too. So I'm not sure what that pricing will be, but I would imagine it will also be pretty low, considering of course that you can get in the door for $179. It's got a 5-inch display. This is a 720p display, so it's not going to be as high resolution as some of the flagship phones out there. So all the new phones have like the Quad HD display, which is a little bit better than 1080, really crisp screens. This one actually looks pretty crisp, but if you put it next to a Quad HD, you could certainly tell the difference. But quite frankly, it is really nice to look at. Good color definition, decent viewing angles on it, and very nice to read. So I have seen it, you know, from all the Android phones that I've seen, it looks on par with a lot of those. But of course, you'll get better displays with more expensive phones, but that's not why you're spending $179 here. You're trying to get the best value for your money. So it's got Android 5.1 Lollipop on board. You got a 13 megapixel camera here on the back, and the photo quality is actually pretty good. You can see some pictures I took here. This is of a flower outside. Nice picture for a cheap phone, really. I mean, this is you know, pretty much on par with a lot of other phones that I've tried, especially in the Android space. Some really good detail on that camera too. So I was pretty impressed with the photo quality on it. And the low light performance is also pretty good on the camera, especially given its price. On the front, you also have a 5 megapixel selfie cam that is wide angle, so it's really well suited for you know, taking selfies out in the field, if you will. So nice there. It actually performs pretty good too, I have to say. I'll load up YouTube here real quick and you just get a feel for just how snappy everything is. And of course, I have a video already kind of queued up here, but it does seem to run really, really nicely. Now, one thing they told me about this phone today is that it's waterproof. So excuse me for 1 second. I'm just going to go pick this bowl up off the ground here. Now, apparently, what they said I can do is put the phone in water and nothing will happen to it. It can survive, they say, 30 minutes submerged up to about 3 feet. So you're not going to go diving with this thing, but apparently we can just like kind of drop it in the water here. As you can see, we are still playing the video. Let me cut back to our camera here. Oops, I'm spilling water all over the desk. I have to clean that up in a second. But as you can see, the video here is still playing while we are running the phone underwater. So it does have a waterproof capability to it. They do suggest, of course, that you get the cover on here snapped on securely. And when we pull it off, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But as you can see, we can get it in the water here. The touchscreen even kind of works while we're underwater as well. But you certainly don't want to leave it in for too long. But if you happen to have a kid or something, you drop the phone in the water, you're going to be just fine with that. So really decent waterproofing that works as advertised. It was interesting. I asked them about the, I got to clean this water up here before it spills off the desk. I asked them about the ports on it, and they actually have the ports waterproofed also. So there's no rubber gaskets or anything on it, and it will basically not have any real damage to it. But I think he said you want to shake it out a little bit. The guy I was talking to at Motorola today. You want to shake it out a little bit to get the water out of those ports before you plug everything in. All right, we got the phone dried off, so we're going to take a look at the rest of the hardware now. We've got our standard volume rocker here along with a power switch. Like many other Motorola devices, it's got a little bit of texture on the power button so you can kind of know which one you're pushing. On the bottom, we've got micro USB for charging, but also OTG, so you can plug in like a little, one of those OTG memory sticks if you wish. There's a headset adapter on the top here as well. You can pop off the backing here just by sticking your fingernail kind of in the little slot there and pulling off the casing here, which we'll do right now. And hopefully it won't drop the phone in the process. We'll pop that off. You notice there's still a little bit of water back here, but when you put this on, there are on the backing here kind of a rubber gasket area, and they ask you to make sure that each of these snaps in. So they put these little snaps on here to ensure that you've got a good seal on it before you put it back together. So it's okay to have a little bit of water back here, just so long as you put the cover back on correctly. So these gasketed areas will snap in and protect these vulnerable spots, namely the SIM card adapter as well as the micro SD card slot. slot from getting moisture on there. So those gaskets will work, but you got to make sure they're snapped in before the phone meets some water there. So just keep that in mind as you're playing with it. It'll support up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. Now this is a Motorola phone, so it is stock Android, but they do have some additional Motorola features built in. There's a couple of gesture-based controls, so you can do what they call the chop here, and that will turn on the flashlight. You can also chop again to turn it off, and if you just flick your wrist around a couple of times, it will load up the camera too, so you can get the camera up without having to actually push anything on the device. And the Moto app on the phone also has some options for how the phone behaves based on the time of day or where it is. And I'll show you what I mean there right here. So we're going to go over to Assist. And right now there is a preset option here for sleeping, which means that I defined a time period between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. where the phone is not going to react to notifications that come in. So the screen won't come on and it won't vibrate unless I deem it important. So for example, I could say if somebody calls twice, then maybe let the second call through, or I could have my favorites like my close friends and family kind of sneak through that setting, but others won't. So you have that option. And you can also set these options based on location too. So if you have maybe a work meeting to go to or something, or there's a certain place you always go to where you, like a movie theater where you don't want your phone ringing, when you get to that place, it'll automatically silence itself, so you don't have to remember to switch it into silent mode, which I think is pretty cool. So that's a neat little feature. And like other Motorola phones, they do have a little display that will appear while the phone is asleep. So if you want to just quickly glance at your notifications, you can do that. You just kind of move the phone around a little bit after it's been resting. And in my case, I'm just getting the time right now, but I can go ahead and unlock the phone and get back into things. You can also decide what can show things on that screen, so you can block specific apps if you choose, and you can also adjust how much detail is displayed on those apps too. Pretty handy little thing that's not present on all Android phones. All right, we're going to put some pressure on this phone now, running a high-end 3D Mark benchmark on it to see how it can kind of hold up here. So as you can see, the frame rates aren't spectacular. We're in like the high teens to low 20s in most areas of this. It goes up to 30 frames per second here or there. This is running with a Qualcomm Snapdragon 410 processor. It's a quad-core processor at 1.4 gigahertz. It's also got an Adreno 306 GPU. What all that jargon means is that this has got some decent stuff on it, but it's not going to be as fast as some of the flagship phones for this kind of stuff. As you can see here on the 3D Mark benchmark score that we got on this device after this test concluded, we got 4,453, which puts it below, of course, the Moto X and the iPhone 6 and others, but this is also a lot less expensive than those phones are. But a majority of the games you're going to find in the Google Play Store are more casual games like this one. This is a Mickey Mouse game called Castle of Illusion. And it plays very nicely. It performs well. The frame rate is very solid. And I think this is the kind of gaming experience you're going to have with a lot of the Google Play Store games. It's certainly not going to do a lot of the super high-end stuff that might be out there for those super high-end phones. But if you're not a serious gamer and just looking for something to pick up a little, one of those little touchscreen games to poke around with every once in a while, this is going to be more than adequate for that. And more than adequate is actually how I would describe this phone. A lot of people in the smartphone marketplace are just looking for something that works. They're not super high-end gamers. They don't need this Quad HD display that sucks down battery life. They just want something to make calls on. It actually does calls pretty well. It's got a decent handset speaker as well as speakerphone and microphone for making calls. And the battery lasts a long time too. So if you're a casual user checking your email every once in a while and browsing the web, you will definitely get the all-day battery life that Motorola is promising on this. I've been really hitting it pretty hard today doing all these benchmarks and everything, and my charge is still about 2/3. So I think you're going to see good battery life out of here and definitely get through the day. Now, if you're doing a lot of gaming and running the screen brightness high and making a lot of phone calls, that will change. But I think, again, for what most smartphone buyers are looking for, they're going to be quite pleased with that. And the bonus is that it actually performs pretty well. So you can go and browse the web like you would on other smartphones, of course, and it does respond very quickly. Things are pretty snappy to render here. It's a very nice browsing experience, and just all the things that you would do on a smartphone as a everyday user, this is going to perform probably at a point that you don't expect at this price. And I think that's what's been really interesting about the smartphone market over the last year or so, is that we're seeing performance in the high end start to rival PCs to some degree. In fact, we're starting to see PC processors in high-end phones. Yet at the lower portion of the market, we're seeing much, much better performance, probably where the flagship phones were maybe 2 or 3 years ago, now in a phone that costs less than $200, unlocked with no carrier commitment. That's progress, and I think that's what's so cool about everything that's been going on. And the best part is that if you are a parent like me and are prone to having your phones fall in water, you will be able to get your phone out of the water without having it break, and I think that is also pretty cool too. So I think if you're a casual user looking for a good value, this is definitely a good value, and I think Motorola is continuing to do some neat things in bringing really good hardware out to people without the carrier commitments, as well as bringing prices down, and I can definitely recommend this one. This is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.